Al, first of all, I mean, what were your thoughts during the 2-minute silence today?
Well, at times like that, I always think about my grandmother, who lost her husband in 1940 outside Dunkirk, before we ever knew we were winning, and then her brother, who was killed in 1944, later on in the war, when victory seemed more assured. And I always think of the hardship she went through and the real personal blow that the war was to her and her family.
James, just give us a sense, 80 years ago today, where you're standing. What would have been going on?
Oh, it would have been party central here. Lots of people carousing, drinking. I remember talking to the biographer, Tom Pocock, who'd been a young officer at the time, and I remember him telling me about how he'd spent most of the afternoon of VE Day in Green Park. He said, I had my head in the lap of a beautiful girl who was pouring champagne down my mouth. And it's an image I've never forgotten. So I think basically the city was partying, as were other cities around the UK.
As years go on, more and more of those first-hand accounts are fading, aren't they? Does that make this especially poignant?
Well, I suppose so. I mean, there were 78 veterans in Westminster Abbey this morning for the service, and they were once part of millions of veterans, and now they're dwindling just a few, and in a few years' time there'll be even less of them. But there is an incredible archive left for us, from oral histories through to diaries and letters, and actually. I'm finding more recently that I'm finding the letters and diaries of people that were written at the time have been even more compelling than some of the oral testimonies recorded much later.
Al, is there a detail in some of those stories that sticks out for you?
The thing that always comes across to me on VE Day is that lurking in the background is the fact that the war with Japan is yet to be won. When Churchill speaks on the balcony of the Ministry of Health in the evening of VE Day, he says, the crowd are cheering him, he says, this is your victory, they say, no, it's yours. Then he says, we've still the war with Japan to deal with. And the crowd boo, because they know that's to come. And that's always the detail in the day of VE Day that strikes me hard.
Thinking of Churchill, Al, of course, he said famously a few years later that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I mean, there's still war in Europe today, isn't there? And Donald Trump is trying to end it. Do you think he's heeded those words from Winston Churchill?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for President Trump. He speaks for himself quite amply. But I think the one true lesson of history that I've learned from studying history is that no one learns the lessons of history. And they can't even divine what they are, usually.
And James, that was a resounding no from you, I think. You feel we haven't learned the lessons of history.
Well, yeah, but we absolutely should do, because, people sort of go, well, is history repeating itself? Well, history can't repeat itself. That's impossible. But patterns of human behaviour do. And what you do notice is that when there's severe financial crises, political upheaval follows, and that gives you one of the triggers for war. So, we need to be careful, and we've just gone through 2008, then we've had the pandemic, now we've got global tariffs and the upending of the global economic order, and, we need to be a little bit worried about that.
And I just wonder, James, we're focusing today on VE Day, but the late 1940s shaped the present world, didn't it, to a large extent? And some of those conflicts that we're seeing today, Pakistan, India, Israel, Palestine, still playing out.
This is a point that VE Day wasn't the end of it. The tremors from the end of the Second World War continued. Borders were rewritten, the dislocation of tens of millions of people, new political orders, splitting up of continents. I mean, all of this comes directly out of the Second World War, which is one of the reasons why we still need to study it, remember it, understand the consequences of getting yourself into a global conflict on this scale. The ramifications are absolutely immense, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Al, what's your abiding memory of today and being part of it?
The thing I find most touching is when, for instance, a veteran, someone who remembers, meets a kid, a young person. When you see the future, our future, facing our past, coming into contact with it, I find those moments incredibly moving. Us looking the past in the face and saying we're going forward into the future, thanks to you. And that's you need a heart of stone not to be moved by that, I feel.
Al Murray, James Holland, thanks ever so much for being with us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.